We are starting with the prayer.
भेद भाव अपने दिल से साफ कर सके, दोस्तों से भूल हो तो माफ कर सके, झूठ से बचे रहे, सच कदम भरे, खुद को जय करे, हमको मन की शक्ति देना, मुश्किलें पड़े तो हम पर हित न कर्म कर, साथ दे तो धर्म का, चले तो धर्म पर, खुद पे हौसला रहे, बदी से ना डरे, दूसरों की जय से पहले खुद को जय करे, हमको मन की शक्ति देना.
Good morning. We are giving tribute to our great master Samuel Hahnemann, who have made this divine science for all of us and taught us dare to be wise. We are highly grateful and seeking blessings from our Guru, Dr. Prafull Vijayakar sirs, who made bridges between the homeopathy and modern science and made homeopathy very easy. Jai Hanuman, Jai Homeopathy, Om Vijayakaraya Namah. So, friends, we are in the journey of reading the books on Mayasm, the end of the Myasumptions of Miasm, and along with that, we are reading the aphorism from Samuel Hahnemann, sixth editions. The wisdom of master will help us to deal with the cases which we are encountering in our clinical practice. So, starting with aphorism number 38, we have read aphorism number 35, 36, and 37 in yesterday's sessions. From the 38 aphorism, there are the possibilities and hypotheses made by the Master Hahnemann that if the dissimilar disease are present in the body, what was the things happen in the body? So he had many experience and experimentation tell us that if it is this happen, then this is the possibilities. So in the first point, we learn that when the two dissimilar diseases meet together in the one person, if the first one is a stronger one, then the second one does not allow to run its course. So that we have learned in aphorism number 36, 37, and this. But another possibility when the new dissimilar disease is stronger than the previous one, then what happens? So we are reading this aphorism from this. The second possibility, the new dissimilar disease is a stronger. In this case, the disease under which the patient originally labored, being the weaker, will be kept back and suspended by the accession of the stronger one until the latter shall have run its course or been cured, and then the old one reappears uncured. The two children affected with the kind of epilepsy remain free from epileptic attack after infections with the ringworm tinea. But as soon as the eruptions on the head was gone, the epilepsy returned just as before, as Tulpius observed. So again, you have to read in between the line that this as the experience tells us that the certain disease which is checked by the newer one, either because of the miasmatic progressions of the disease or because of if it is suppose in epilepsy the ringworm is appear, that means the eruptions came out, but again the eruption has been suppressed by means of any treatment, then again the epilepsy has been remained. So this is what the master has observed. Another example, the itch, as Scott shows, disappear on the occurrence of the scurvy, but after the cure of the latter, it again broke out. So this is what we have to understand, that the reversal of the miasm, a reversal from the theory of we are understanding the theory of suppression to something which disease is not gone in the air. So it disappear from one place and appear in another place. So as the pulmonary thysis remained stationary when the patient was attacked by the violent typhus, but went on again after later had run its course. Another example, if mania occurs in the consumptive patients, the thysis with all these symptoms is removed by the former one, but if that go off, the thysis return immediately and proves fatal. When measles and smallpox are prevalent at the same time and both attack the same child, the measles that had already broken out is generally checked by the smallpox that came somewhat later. Nor does the measles resume its course until after the cure of smallpox. But it is not infrequently happen that inoculated smallpox is suspended for 4 days by the superventions of the measles, as observed by the Magnet 24, after the discommissions of which the smallpox complete its course. Even when the inoculations of the smallpox had taken effect for the 6 days, and the measles then broke out, the inflammations of the inoculations remained stationary, and the smallpox did not ensue until the measles had completed its regular course of 7 days. So these are the observations made by the masters and their fellow friends for something which is dissimilar happen in one person's. Another example is like if in an epidemics of measles that the disease attacked many individuals on the fourth or fifth day after the inoculations of the smallpox and prevented the development of the smallpox until it had completed its own course, whereupon the smallpox appeared and proceeded regularly to its termination. The true, smooth, erysipelatous-looking scarlatina of Sydenham with a sore throat was checked on the fourth day by eruptions of the cowpox which ran its regular course, and not till it was ended did the scarlata again establish itself. But on other occasions, as both disease seems to be of equal strength, the cowpox was suspended in the eighth day by the superventions of the true smooth scarlatina of Sydenham, and the red areola of a former disappeared until the scarlatina was gone, whereupon the cowpox immediately resumed its course and went on its regular terminations. The another example, the measles suspended the cowpox on the 8 days when the cowpox had nearly attained its climax. The measles broke out. The cowpox now remained stationary and did not resume the complete course until the discriminations of the measles had taken place. so that on 17th day it presented the appearance it otherwise would have shown on the 10th day. Even after the measles had broken out, the cowpox inoculations took effect but did not run its course until this measles had disappeared. These are the Quatums observe this. So what Master Hahnemann tells about and sum up in that, I myself also seen that mumps, the angina parotidia, immediately disappears when cowpox inoculations had taken effect and had nearly attained its height. It was not until the complete terminations of the cowpox and the disappearance of its red areola that these febrile tumefactions of the parotid and submaxillary glands that is caused by a peculiar miasm reappeared and ran its regular course of 7 days. And thus what the conclusion made by Master is that it is with all dissimilar disease, the stronger suspend the weaker, but they never cure one another. So this is what the point to be understood in our case taking. When certain disease happen in certain patients, then we think that that disease has cured, as the conventional medicine think like that, but it is not like that. So sometimes you may end up with the recurrent disease like a recurrent tonsillitis. Tonsillitis, the patient came to you with the tonsillitis. The patient has a recurrent tonsillitis, and in a certain period of time the patient may develop certain another disorders, and tonsillitis went away and you feel that the patient was better. After that disease has been removed, again the tonsillitis happens. So this is what the something which is happening. So when the two dissimilar diseases are together in one patient, the stronger suspend the weaker one, and they never cure one another. When they do not complicate one with another, which seldom the case in the acute conditions. So this is what Master Hahnemann has made the conclusions. So this was the wisdom of Master Hahnemann. Now we are connecting that wisdom with the Miasms and the modern science. So we are reading the Sear's book, The Assumptions of the Miasm. Yesterday we have read about the introductory part of the Miasm books. Like in the introductory part, what Sir has experienced in his clinical practice about that if I have seen a cases of three cases of same symptomatology, one case is given a belladonna, one case is given a helleborus, another case has given another remedy. But without understanding the disease and its pathological point of view, if you apply that, the same phenomena will not help you in the practice. So that is the need of the miasm. Now, why this need is arises in the time of Hahnemann. So Hahnemann having a dilemma when he had discovered the homeopathy in 1790s. After that, he started experimenting and practicing, and in 1805, he had written one book, Some Medicines as Experience. So after that, he started dealing with the more cases of the incurables, and in the era of that time, from the 1816 to 1828, he found that something is I am treating, but did not match with the process, and something remains. So he is searching for something which is not found until the date. So then he started searching this process. So until the date, during the year 1816 to 1827, I have been employed day and night with a very serious problem of finding out why all the medicines known to homeopathy brings about no real cure in the diseases under discussions and of securing, if possible, a clearer insight into the true state of those thousands of stricken ones who remains uncured in the face of unimpeachable truth of the homeopathic system of healing. In this time, the giver of all good things offered me to solve the sublime riddles for the mankind's good as a result of incessant thoughts, tireless investigations, and accurate observation and most careful experimentation. These are the Hahnemann's words in the first part of the last medical work, chronic disease and their nature and homeopathic treatment. In the above para, one sees the concern of Hahnemann and the worries which he faced around 1816 to 1827. He mentions about the homeopathic medicine not bringing about the real cure as a serious problem that he faced, and this despite the fact that he believed in the indisputable fact or the unimpeachable truth of the homeopathic system of healing. He observed that the treatment of the many chronic diseases, even when carried out strictly in accordance with the theory of homeopathic science as hitherto practiced, was encouraging in the beginning, less favorable in the continuations, and hopeless in the end. So, this is what the master felt in this. Every treatment was encouraging in the beginning, the less favorable in the continuations, and at the end, the treatment become hopeless. So, are most of us even today not facing the same serious problem as the Hahnemann has found in 200 years ago? So, we all have the same things. Patient came, we prescribe, and the patient feels better. Patient feels better for a few days. Then we improve our medicines, potency increase करते हैं और देते हैं, and then suddenly what happened? Patient is deteriorating. So this is what something that in the initial days the patient says पहले जो आपने दवाई दिया था ना उससे अच्छा था. Now सर वो दवाई वापस दो जिससे आपने दिया था. You know that you had prescribed the same medicine twice or thrice, or you improve the potency. Then also the patient. So in the first beginning, it is encouraging. Then in the continuation, it is less favorable, and finally you landed with the hopeless end that oh, I don't have a plan to treat this patient unless and until you are missing something. Then and then it happen in the case. If you are taking considerations of a particular keystone, which we call as a miasm, then and then this is not happening in your practice. The glaring difference is that we, despite having a solution to the problem offered by the Hahnemann, still go on practicing to relieve the temporary or suppress it or let go the patient, blaming the failure of homeopathic science. It is not the failure of homeopathic science. Dr. Vijayakar always says it is not the science is failing, it is the person who is failing. It is the homeopath who is failing. It is not the science is failing. So science has the answers, but the homeopath has a limited knowledge. So that's why that knowledge is not giving the answer to the patient. That is why it is the failure of homeopath himself, not the homeopathy. So the patient blaming the failure on the homeopathic science that the number of drugs proved are insufficient. So at that time, many dilemma was there during the Hanuman's era that the drug you have proved is the small numbers, so insufficient. That the theory of miasm is not the truth for our own good. Even the theory was given by the master Hanuman. This theory is not helpful for our goods. That though there are millions of the plant species and millions of the insect species, we have only proved a few hundreds and many more lame excuses are put forth during the time of Hanuman. So reactions of the great Hanuman to this situation was completely different. That he took it as a challenge from the god, the giver, as he quoted. He knew he had to go to the depth of the serious problem because perhaps God, the giver, wanted him to suffer and solve this sublime riddle for mankind's good. And by incessant thoughts, tireless investigations, accurate observations, and the most careful experiments. So, in short, he worked very conscientiously and diligently for the good of mankind. That is why, in the one aphorism, I think it was in a footnote number 120, it was written that when you apply this principle in a mathematics certainty, then this become a divine tool. So, this is homeopathy is a divine. So, it is that is why Hanuman wanted that the giver of God has made him to solve this sublime riddle for the mankind's good. Now, what was there in the pre-Sora days? So when we have to learn something about the Mayasm, we have to know about the history of that time. So if we know the history of that time, then and then we can understand that what is the history and now I what things we have to connect with the modern science today. So what was there in the pre-Sora days? So from 1816 onwards, Hahnemann was deeply involved in the quest for the truth, which ended in 1828 with the publishing of his book Chronic Disease. The starting point for the main idea of the book was the observation that certain chronic disease of a venereal or non-venereal origins otherwise could be alleviated or relieved by the homeopathic remedies but not cured. Of special conditions like indiscretions in the eating, drinking, or change in the weather or emotional outbursts caused by apparently cured symptoms to appear again frequently with new and stubborn symptoms. New remedy chosen were also of no avail. So this is what master has felt. सिम्टम्स आ रहे हैं दवाई दे रहे हैं ठीक हो रहा है वापिस वही सिम्टम्स आ रहे हैं नई दवाई दे रहे हैं then also it is so the first Hanuman and his student thought that as we also think today the reason for failure might be found in insufficient number of the remedy proved first point and the prospect would improve as more and more remedies would be added to the physician's armory. So, if we increase the number of medicines in the homeopathic field, still we are in the lame excuse that we are not curing. Right now, in Hanuman's era, there are a few number of remedies in hundreds, but right now in our era, we have a thousands of number of remedies. Still, there is a lame excuses that we are not treating the patients with the core, and even there is a lame excuse that we are not curing the patience because something is missing. So when something is missing that we are not understood mastered in a proper way and that is the missing keystone. This console the student as of course most of us who are frantically trying to prove newer remedy to suit our convenience. But not so with the Hahnemann. The master could not rest satisfied with it day and night and he was occupied with the questions why? Why the carefully selected remedy did not produce the cure? This was his question in the mind. He worked for 12 long years with the incessant thoughts, tireless investigations, accurate observations, and careful experiment, and also uninterrupted meditations. One fine day, he wrote a letter in a letter to Dr. Friedrich Golthem, bookmaster. Neyman writes in the year 1820, there will always remain some ailment uncured by homeopathy, the remains of some deep-seated chronic disease. All that has been published by me on homeopathic healing art is not sufficient for the complete cure of the great family of chronic disease. In the same letter, he further adds that in the homeopathic writings as yet published, there is still lacking a great keystone which binds together all that has been thus far published, so that we may be able to improve the treatment of chronic disease and effect a complete cure of a great family of chronic disease. In the same letter, he further adds that in the homeopathic writings yet published, there is still lacking the great keystones which binds together all that has been thus far published, so that we may be able to improve the treatment of chronic disease and effect a complete cure. He further says, I have striven night and day for the last 4 years from 1816 to 1820 to discover the missing keystone to stamp out old chronic disease. So at the time he found something that something is missing. So that is what he found this. By thousands of experiments, and uninterrupted meditations, I have at last attained my object. None of my pupils as yet know anything of this invaluable discovery, the worth of which to mankind exceeds all else that I have ever discovered, and without which existing homeopathy remains defective or imperfect. That is why Master Hahnemann always says that the discovery of miasm is the best discovery in the field of homeopathy. Even previous discovery of homeopathy is no use or imperfect unless and until I have found this keystone. So Hahnemann himself acknowledged that the discovery of homeopathy in its principle was not so great a discovery, since all that he had discovered about it was useless and incomplete. So his great discovery, he conceded, is the discovery of the missing keystone, and that is the discovery of miasm. So this is what we have to understand the history. As the base of chronic maladies, without the miasm theory, homeopathy remained defective and imperfect. Now, relating chronic disease to the itch. So, we all know that the master Hahnemann has, after so many years of experience, so many years of tireless efforts, and he had concluded that there is a three component in the body which remains after long treatment with the best homeopathic treatment. In spite of best homeopathic treatment, is one is the itch. So, relating the chronic disease to the itch, for 12 long years he was searching for the keystone which he thought would complete the science of homeopathy. He ultimately did achieve the goal of discovering the keystone from frequent observations. Hahnemann had discovered that almost all, if not all, the chronic diseases which would not yield to the usual homeopathic remedies had some connection with the previous outbreak of the itch. Now, each a skin disease, which was rampant century back, was caused by an insect called a mite. When this was treated locally to make it disappear, a train of evil or a disease more and more grave followed, like a pneumonia, bronchitis, dropsy, epilepsy, hysteria, phthisis, etc. Not very surprisingly, Hahnemann was not the only one to establish the connection between these chronic maladies and expelled itch. So before Hahnemann also there was one author. So 20 years before Hahnemann published his book on the chronic disease, another scientist had referred to this phenomena. Othentrich, a university professor of Tübingen, was experimenting on this in his clinic in 1808. He had also noticed in his practical therapy that many chronic diseases resulted from dislodging and superficial itch. So this was the starting point where the root was. Nowadays, the patient comes to us. What we are giving the idea that the homeopathy teach from the root cause. So Hahnemann was in a searching for the root cause. What was the root of disease? So this is what he find. And before Hahnemann, there was one author who found that all the chronic disease which resulting from the dislodging of the superficial itch. The only difference between him and Hahnemann was that he attributed it quite wrongly to cells, but he, being an allopath, advocated removal of the itch by the silver sulfur and a soft soap, which was equally not good. So this is what Hahnemann and that author is differ here. As the time passed by, Hahnemann was more and more convinced by his observations and experience that most diverse disease conditions of the human body originate from the itch. The wart to the tumor to curvature of the bone or the spine, or in short, thousands of the various pathological manifestations observed in the human being and with the different name afforded by the modern science, were in fact having their roots in a few starting disease like a itch. So this is what Hahnemann has found, something that something is there at the root is the itch, but all could not be related to it. He classifies the patient into group depending upon their starting point of the illness. So that is why the things happen in the life of the Hahnemann, that I need to classify the group of people in which category of the disease the root cause is the itch, in which category of the disease the root cause is different. So he classifies the patient into group depending upon their starting point of the illness. He traced back the journey of the disease to the first symptoms ever suffered or noticed by the patient. So this is what we have to take into consideration. By learning these things, we have to understand the journey of the disease. So whenever the patient comes to you, at the resultant disease, you need to ask about the journey of the disease, from where the disease has been started, what was the first symptom, what was the things happening in your life. So this is the very important part. What master is searching for the root, the same way we have to search for the root. So he traced back the journey of the disease to the first symptoms ever suffered or noticed by the patient. It was obvious that by now Hahnemann was aware that disease begins on the skin and proceeded inwards. So, as we have learned in the theory of separations, that all the disease from the ectoderm goes down to the endoderm, goes deeper into mesoderm, and then travel to the neuroectoderm to the seventh layer. The same way what Master Hahnemann has found. The beginning point of the or the start symptoms were traced back right up to the skin and the least important organ. Here I refer reader to the books Predictive Homeopathy Theory. So that was we have learned. I request all the participants or all the learners that you should go to this book and read this book diligently so you can understand the process and the science behind this. After being convinced that all the chronic ailment expressed by the patient had their roots in the deeper lying in original evil, and he concluded that the original evil sought must be the miasmatic chronic nature. As was perfectly evident that once it has developed, it could not be eradicated even by the vigorous or a robust constitution. It was written in aphorism. Okay, neither could it be overcome by the healthiest diet nor a healthy order of life. In fact, it grew worse by additions of the more serious symptoms right up to the end of life. So it progresses. So thus the miasm now cropped up. The miasm means a taint or a pollutions that thus Hahnemann show that there were various taint on the constitutions. A certain constitutions were tainted or polluted in such a manner that they gave rise to only certain traits of the disease, and this was despite healthy life and even a robust constitutions. So, how many types of pain could be there? This was the question looming large in front of Hahnemann. At this juncture, Hahnemann viewed the fact that the science was not advanced enough, even in 1828, to allow him to give a proper explanations for his finding. He wrote in the preface to the fourth volume, we have no means of reaching with our senses or of gaining essential knowledge as to the process of life, means the life of interior, in the interior of the man, and it is only at times granted as to draw a speculative conclusion. So, see how far his thinking is at the time of in the 18th century, that he know that this is was my speculations is nothing but it is a science. So this is what how far Riemann was ahead of us. In the first of the 19th century, of course, there was no electron microscope, no advances in the field of pathology, immunology, or human biochemistry. Leave aside the molecular biology and genetics. He had to work to find the root of the chronic disease only empirically and experimentally and logically. Experimentally and analytically, he was able to state that the incurable chronic malady owed its origin to only three basic start points somewhere on the skin, either each or the venereal warts or a chancre. So this was the Hahnemann has concluded three basic points without the advancement of the science. Hahnemann says in the chronic disease, analytically and logically, I have concluded that all the chronic ailments owing to their origin to a certain skin disease or expressions had their fundamental origin firmly established in the chronic miasm. This means this means their parasitical existence in the human organism goes on continually strengthening and increasing irrespective of a healthy lifestyle, diet, or even a healthy, robust constitutions. They will never pass away by themselves, but will grow and vitiate themselves until death supervenes. That is, they will always end in a destruction of the organism. All these benign looking skin element of the skin, warts or chancre have deep seated origin which are finally the cause of destruction of the man. Finally, probing the patients and their illness and their prior illness, he concluded that there are three local visible diseases which can be mother of three group classes of the chronic disease occurring later in the life. His experiment shows three groups as follow. The group of the disease which followed initial symptoms on the skin, that is itch. The group of the disease which followed the treatment of the symptoms on the skin, that is venereal warts. And the group of the disease which is followed initial symptoms on the skin, that is chancre. After having determined the root cause of the chronic disease and after naming them as a taint, pollutions, or miasm, the next question was the name of the miasm. So this is what he has to giving the name to the miasm, nomenclature of the miasm. The conclusion of the pre-Sora days work of the Hahnemann that each, as well as the venereal warts and chancre, were not the cause but the result of the disease, which, after firmly establishing itself in the whole organism, extracts itself from the skin as the itch, warts, and chancre. So, what Master is telling that these are the three symptoms of the each warts and chancre is actually not the miasm. It is the representations or outward manifestations of the miasm. Okay, so that the chronic disease or miasm had a parasite-like existence inside the organism which went on strengthening even in a healthy lifestyle, diet, and robust constitution. Now you have to understand the miasm is a parasite-like infection. So it is not actually parasite. It is something that resided inside in our body, taking the nutrition from our body, and at the till it is remain till the end of the life and it progresses. So this is what the miasm is. And its rule was to destroy the life. Publishing of the book Chronic Disease. So in 1828, Dr. Hahnemann published his books of chronic disease with all the above conclusions. The reaction to this book was alike. In almost all the circle, he was ridiculed, criticized, and denounced by the friends and foes alike. Those who criticized him laughed at a very suggestions that a mite or an insect of the scabies, Arachas scabi, which could be caught hold of with a needle and would cause a remote things as epilepsy or crisis. So the conventional medicines, the conventional treatment or heteropathic treatment of the followers, the orthodox, they believe that all the disease are in the material form. So if we remove that scabi from the body and it will remove the everything. So that was a ridicule on the Hahnemann's. So few of his friends tried to correct him by saying it is the impure blood which may be the cause of dyscrasia, which in turn gave rise to a chronic disease. So, whenever you discover something, so there are many of people is opposing you, and there are a few people who believe in you, and they try to help you. So, same way it happened with Hanuman also. There are a few people who are advising that not to do like this. This is happening like this way because of this impure blood and everything. But two of his trusted lieutenants, Dr. Staff and Dr. Gross, were informed about his work by Dr. Hahnemann before the publishing of his book. In order to maintain the complete secrecy, this was exactly because he had anticipated such adverse reactions. Hahnemann was a man of future, so he knows that this will happen in the future, so he knows that whom to give my knowledge, and so that way he made some secrecy for time being. He know the adverse reaction which after I publish this book it will happen, which he thought would be hindering his research. Despite all the brickbat and the criticism, Dr. Hahnemann stood firm. He described this discovery of the miasm as the greatest discovery and a great boon to the mankind. He was so firm about it that he felt bad that he would be misunderstood and his follower would not understand this discovery properly and they would therefore not be able to reap rich harvest from this discovery for the benefit of the human race. He mentioned this in the preface of Chronic Disease also. This great philosophical mind had one more foresight. He predicted that his teaching will not be followed sincerely by his so called followers. He predicted that principle which he had laid down for the practice of homeopathy would not be understood by many because of lack of scientific proof. Hence, he wrote in the preface to the first edition in the Chronic Disease in 1828. What he writes, but in communicating to the world this great discovery, I am sorry that I must doubt whether my contemporaries will comprehend the logical sequence of this teaching of mine and will follow them carefully and gain thereby infinite benefit for the suffering humanity, which must inevitably spring from the faithful and accurate observance of the same or whether frighten away. See, if you follow my logical sequence of teachings very carefully, so you will get the infinite benefit. This is short tips, short, what we call as warranty given by the Master Hahnemann to all of us. But what happens? Because this is based on the faithful and accurate observance of the same. And if you frightens, whether frightened away by the unheard of the nature of many of these disclosure, they will not rather leave them untried and uninitiated and therefore useless. So if you don't understand or if you don't take into consideration the theory of miasm and you neglect it, then and then the homeopathy science is become useless. So this is what he knows about that before he had started this process. May they do better with the great discovery, the theory of chronic disease, that is the doctrine of miasm presented to them. Both this thought in the mind of Dr. Hahnemann, that of a doubt and sense of security, were accompanied by the hopefulness, hoping against the hope that they, his contemporaries and followers, will do better. We cannot let him down. We, as a homeopath, have to strive and complete the work he has left incomplete for the sheer reasons that he was physically a mortal and the term of the life endowed upon him by a supreme being, though longer than many others, was just not enough to discover and improve this great art of the healing, not enough to discover the theory of chronic disease and to add to it or to provide a scientific explanations for the same. It is we who have to vindicate him in terms of modern advance in the science, and a day shall come when we homeopaths shall be acknowledged as more scientific than our counterparts. So this is what we have to do for Master Hahnemann. So this is what Master Hahnemann has made something for us. Same thing Dr. Vijayakar has made something for us. So it is our responsibility and our journey of sharing our things to our future generation. And then the science has advanced to such a way, then they all told that the more scientific. Even today's and nowadays, when you go to the Wikipedia, and in the Wikipedia, homeopathy was written as a pseudoscience. So it is what our duty that it is not a pseudoscience. Now advancing the quantum science, the quantum mechanics, then and then they can understand the homeopathy is nothing but it is based on the quantum mechanisms and quantum science. So we conclude our today's reading to up to this level. We will starting with the chapter 2 from the tomorrow. If you have any questions and queries, so you can ask regarding the miasm. Again, this is the just the introductory part. So many a time you didn't have any questions regarding that, but when we study later on, there are many questions comes in the mind of all of you. So we will have a discussions in the later sessions also. Okay, till you have any query and any questions regarding your clinical practice. So if we have a few minutes, so we can have a chat or we can have discussions. So write your questions in the chat box so we can have a discussion on that. Good morning, Dr. Meera. As we are reading, the importance of reading is something that we have to understand that by reading we are improving our knowledge. We are installing this knowledge into our mind, and then when the patient comes to us, we are using this knowledge to practice it in a proper way. Gaurav Prajapati, please give some clinical example of two dissimilar disease in nowadays practice. Okay. See, most of time the nowadays we are not using the modern the concept of the dissimilarity, but we are using the concept of the miasm in the patients. So whenever the patient came with the many disease, like say for example, the patient having a gallstone, one disease having a gallstone, another disease having a dyslipidemia, another disease having a hypertension. Okay, so this all three diseases are there. There are another possibilities in Hahnemann's time. He mentioned that when the two dissimilar diseases there, the stronger one repel the weaker one. The weaker one, previous is weaker one, the stronger will take the place and then run its course. And third possibility is that it will take its own part. So the own part is something that we have to understand that the three disease. So we have to understand disease in terms of miasm. So gallstone means the accumulations of the accumulations of the secretions of the liver into the gallbladder and making it crystallization. So it is a gallstone. The process is called as a psychosis. There is a dyslipidemia. Dyslipidemia means the depositions of the fat or lipid in the into the body, okay, into the bloodstream. So this is what again the accumulations of the lipid. It is also psychosis and hypertension. So hypertension is because of three reasons. It is because of some peripheral resistance or spasm of the blood vessels, or it is because of atherosclerotic changes, or it is because of the malignant conditions of the heart affection, so dilated cardiomyopathies and everything. So we have to conclude this with the understanding of miasm nowadays, not the same what Master Hahnemann has left. Hope you got this, Dr. Gaurav. Dreams of snakes are more syphilis than the dreams of water bodies and temple. We will conclude this in the later sessions, Dr. Meera. Yes, absolutely. Sir always says the dreams of snakes are more syphilitic. Okay. Even dreams of water bodies and pot temples. This was the latest understanding of nowadays that we have to understand. This dreams is just a subconscious pattern of the mind. So we have to conclude that this subconscious phenomena happening in the body. That means also, Master S. Haneman has written in somewhere in the footnote that warning dreams related to the death you have to count into consideration. So this is what you have to understand that this is the syphilis. Most of time, Sir has given that dreams of snake gives rise to the process called as autoimmunity. Okay, so that could be the very important nowadays. You have to take into consideration. Don't take directly the dreams of snake into entry point. You have to understand man as a whole. Molluscum contagiosum is a soric or psychotic. Molluscum contagiosum is soric, as mentioned by Hahnemann also, and even we have to understand. So in molluscum contagiosum, you need to give a GCS, antisoric. Sir, we gave sepia as in a homeopathic antidote for the patient who had taken homeopathic medicines, but what it complement the previous medicine because we don't know the previous prescription. So in that case, what to do? unless and until you are required to antidote the remedy, then and then sepia has to be indicated. Otherwise, you need to give a GCS. It will take care of everything, even in antidote and complete everything. Don't think about which remedy has been prescribed. And in every case, you don't need to prescribe a sepia. If the patient having a dullness, the patient goes into indifferent state after a bad effect of some vibrations or some potency, then and then you need to prescribe, and it will work for the physiological point of view, not on the pathological point of view. Mind well. May we need two different medicine in a dissimilar disease? As such, it is not the two remedy is required, but if you understand in a scientific way, so in that case, when we go to the approach after reading the miasm, then and then we can understand that we have to prescribe a certain remedy in terms of the state remedy, in terms of the constitutional remedy, in terms of the acute phase remedy. So this can be the different remedy is needed in one patient. It is not hard and fast rule that you need to treat one patient with the one remedy only. Okay. Can we consider the present time stresses as miasm? These are the ailments. Present time stresses is not the miasm. The present type of stresses can lead to the process of miasmatic development. So that is the ailment. Most of time the sora has a soric element, the psychosis has a psychotic element, syphilis has a syphilitic element. So that ailment can is the starting point to initiate the miasmatic process in the man. So we cannot directly conclude that these traits are the miasms. Okay. We will understand miasm in detail so you can understand your queries can be solved gradually. Uh, it is good to treat the warts. So patient came for warts, you need to treat that. It is the patient concern. There is no question of that. What is the miasm of tinea which suppresses epilepsy for the time being? Actually, the miasm of the tinea is a sora. But in recent advancement of the understanding, the sthenia is treated with the approach of autoimmunity. So whenever you find any autoimmune trait in the patient's mind or in the autoimmune process, you can directly treat the tinea with this approach. So in tinea, you require a different remedy rather than the constitutional remedy. And again, Dr. Sunita, for that you need to read the theory of separation. So whenever the any what we call as electric current is higher in the brain area and lower in the skin area, so when any toxins came out from the skin, so the brain is free from the toxins, so brain symptom has been relieved. But when it suppresses by the local means, then again the toxin went to the higher center and again it produced epilepsy. So this was the things you have to keep in mind. So for that you need to read the theory of separations. Child comes with the acute state of the bronchitis with the past history of autoimmune disorders like a thrombocytopenia, having no symptom at the moment. Should that be considered for the prescriptions or any care has to be taken? In case of acute trait, you need to treat the chain dispositions and acute conditions, not to take the GCS. In that case, you do not require any constitutional remedy, but the acute prescriptions or the state remedy. But keep in mind, you have to understand that this acute might land up into a syphilitic state. So you have to be very careful and watchful to the child that this child might not land into from acute condition to the acute syphilitic state. So be careful for that. But in that case, you need to prescribe the change dispositions and acute conditions. After medicine what has gone but a new what again coming after 6 months, what to do in this case? So in that case you have treated the patient with the partial remedy. The remedy is not right, so you need to the process remain the same. That means you have not strengthened the constitutions. Okay, so if you have given the remedy and the patient's warts has gone, that means the patient constitution has strengthened, But if it is born from one place and it appear in another place, that means your remedy is partial. So reconsider the case and treat accordingly. If the person has hypertension and warts, hypertension should be cured first, then warts with the same remedy. Warts, potency, and repetitions. What do you have? I don't get what you want to ask. You have to keep, you have to make aware of the patient that for you, this is the very important. If the patient is not understanding, then you have to think that this patient is the intellectually very dull. He has no idea about what he is going to. So for them, what is most important and hypertension is not important. So this could be the cases of a Baraita case. So Baraita people think like that. Okay, this is a misplaced anxiety about the health. Okay, most of the psychotic pathology treated with the 200 potency, as I learned from Vijay Sir always give 200 potency without repetitions or as and when required. Okay, it is where the case will tell you. Brain benign and malignant tumor, go to the medicine book. You will find the glioma is a benign and astrocytoma is a malignant tumor. Dr. Biplab. For that, you need to wait for autoimmunity connection to tinea. You need to wait for a certain time. So this will help you in the future. Okay. So I will not give you answer about the autoimmunity right now because for that I am working on that and will let you in a future sessions. So thank you so much. We have a great discussions on the question answer. So we will continue our journey from tomorrow onwards, and we are starting with the second chapter. Okay. Any question you can directly ask me on my WhatsApp number also. So if I have a time, I will share in the group also. Okay. And from today onwards, I am sharing a single remedy a day. So I am sharing one remedy a day in a group. So all can learn Materia Medica along with the study of the miasms and everything. So yesterday I had message one first remedy abrotinum. Go and read and learn. Okay. Thank you for the best learning. Thank you all for being with me. And today we have break the records. It was 125. Thank you for being with me. Thank you all. Oh, thank you, doctor. It was 127. I didn't notice 127. That's why. Thank you all for your love and passions of learning. So thank you for being with me. We end the day, call the day off. Thank you all.